Diabetes is a serious chronic health threat.
Diabetes.
Type 2 diabetes.
Diabetes.
Type 1 diabetes.
And type 2 diabetes.
Diabetes. About diabetes.
Anything can go wrong.
Diabetes.
Diabetes.
It's amazing how much everything affects your blood sugar.
I went to my eye doctor, my regular glasses eye doctor, ophthalmologist, I think, a couple of months before I was diagnosed with diabetes, thinking I needed a change of glasses because I couldn't see very well. My eyes were blurry. Cars coming towards me had like halos around their headlights and things like that. And my eye doctor, I had an appointment, I got tested, and he said, "You don't need a prescription change. That's not the problem. The problem is you have high blood sugar and it's affecting your eyes." So then he said, "You need to make an appointment with your doctor right away." So I went home and I called my doctor and I got an appointment with her, and she tested my blood and found out that this took another month or so, that yes, I had diabetes. So kudos to my eye doctor. I started doing my 1 to 4 to 5 hours of research a day online, and going to the library to take out books and ordering books, and did a lot of reading to discover more about this new disease I had. I didn't talk to people. I just felt it was up to me to do the research, and I could have done more asking people where else I could go for information. What has sort of amazed me was my doctor didn't mention any of these places to me. It was up to me to kind of go find this stuff out. I'm quite sure if I had gone to her saying, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know what the information is, that she could have told me a few things, but I sort of discovered it on my own. And because I've done tons of research on other topics, I just took this as a topic to research and went ahead and did it. But I think you start with your doctor, you go to a hospital to see if they have a diabetic clinic or even a diabetic doctor. You talk to your pharmacist because very often they know places that you can go. And that way you're talking to professionals in the medical field that might have an idea where you can go. When I was researching online, when I was first doing research, I tried to go into medical sites so that I figured they would have better information. But some of them just, I took everything at face value, but I believed nothing because I was doing research, and that's how you do research. And then some of the sites I went on to I have a little bit of a science background, and I knew the information they had on their site was wrong from all the stuff I'd been taught in the past. So I just didn't go to those sites anymore and stopped believing that site, and tried to find more medical sites or different countries. Like Canada has Diabetes Canada site and gives you better information than just Googling anything. And the other way is I also took a lot of books out of the library and got information out of them, and they were published medical journals and things like this. That way I could read them and know what good information was. So this research was hard work, and I treated it like any other school course I've taken in the past. And I did my research, I did my reading, I took notes, and I treated it like a course that I wanted to pass. And I did a lot of research and a lot of reading, and it worked out really well. And what then I did is that this information that I started getting, especially looking up which foods had how many carbs in them, I put it all in a binder. And so that even now I can flip open that binder and go to fruits or vegetables or grains and look up how many carbs something roughly has in it. Although I can also Google each individual item as if I want to. And so I could use this as a quick reference for the things that I normally ate. If I didn't eat them, I tended not to put them in here so much, so that I have lists of different foods and what their carb values are that I got online or from a book or something like that. And it's really handy. And I must admit, I wouldn't want to take this binder anywhere outside the house because it gets heavy and it's awkward. But overusing it and using it again and again, certain foods that I eat all the time, I've sort of learned how much to eat and what their carb value is and things like that, like half a cup of beans or half a cup of chickpeas. And I still use this reference now, even though I've memorized the portions and the carbs that I should be eating, because it's really useful for things that I might forget. Okay, if I'm having red lentils instead of brown lentils, what is the carb factor change? Or can I eat more of one than the other? So it's very handy.
You might hear a lot of health practitioners talking about eating a rainbow or adding a lot of color and variety to your meal. So there's a couple methods that we employ that ensure that the food that we eat is a nice balanced diet. We want to split up our plate into 3 different sections. The first section is vegetables, which will be half of our plate. Try to choose an amount that can fit in both hands. Next up, we want a quarter of our plate to be full of protein that's low in saturated fat and salt. We want to make sure that's about the same size as the palm of our hand. In the last quarter, we want to fill it with a grain option that's about the size of our fist. We can add a drink, either milk or water. Try not to go with juice or anything that's full of sugar. And we can have a fruit. If we need to add any oil or butter to our meal, we can add about the same size of our thumb or what fits into our spoon.
When I was pre-diabetic, which my doctor at the time had told me I'm probably pre-diabetic, I was also overweight. So I started eating mostly vegetables and proteins, which really helped. 1, I lost some weight. 2, I just felt more energetic. And there were days that I had like a foggy brain, and it helped with that as well, that I had seemed to have a clearer brain. I could make decisions better. I could, do all my jobs easier. And then after I was diagnosed with diabetes, I really kept to a strict diet of very few carbs except in vegetables and fruit, and enough protein that at my age I needed a certain amount of protein, so I made sure I had that. And for a while I stayed totally away from anything that had carbs in it, anything bread related, cracker related, anything like that. And it really helped me, I think, in the first 6 to 8 months of diabetes to just manage it better and know what I should eat to feel better. And of course, the other advantage is that I lost weight. I lost 90 pounds in 7 months.
Risk factors for diabetes include excess body weight. So making sure that you're, eating healthy. What I like to describe as eating the rainbow. So making sure you're eating lots of different fruits, vegetables. That's the big one.
Consistency is a huge part of overall health, and doing it up as regularly as often. So when you look at food recommendations, there's a wide range of different foods we recommend. Those are also on repeat, like eat the different colors. Dietitians often say, so eat the different colors. They all represent different vitamins and minerals and nutrition. If we're talking about diabetes as well, that's what, in my opinion, is also happening within our bodies, is that things are out of balance. The hormones are out of balance. Insulin and blood sugar levels are all out of balance. So I think the key part of that for nutrition is to bring in balanced foods, and that requires a wide range of different types of foods, and also which include like proteins, the carbohydrates that come from fruits and vegetables, and just trying to maintain the balance between all the different types of macronutrients. Also ensure that you're getting enough protein as well, protein foods through, and for me it's about getting all this nutrition from food as opposed to reverting to like supplements. So for me it's about eating whole natural foods that I always ask myself, did this food grow naturally? Is a good question to ask yourself. Try to reduce the amount of processed foods. And I often think about how often, like, I'm doing this throughout the week or throughout a day. So just ensuring that I'm doing like regular meals, and then it's okay to cheat once in a while, I guess, but ensuring that we're doing that responsibly.
Once people get a diagnosis of diabetes, there's often not a lot of dietary changes as well. I mean, sweets are delicious, but like the complex carbohydrates, like donuts, those kinds of sweets. If you're eating a blueberry muffin, like that has tons of carbohydrates that, if you're diabetic, is just going to make your blood glucose control out of whack. Yeah.
Everything has been in moderation. The same with, I can eat dark chocolate, but in moderation. So not a whole chocolate bar, just one square when I'm craving it. Another thing that really, really helps, that diabetics shouldn't eat and is really good for your health, and that have a lot of salt in them, and are processed foods. Pretty well anything you find in a box that you just add water and eat. So noodles of some sort, or cheesy macaroni, anything like that that's in a package are usually high in salt and more cholesterol filled and not as good for your body.
Ask yourself the question, if this food does it grow naturally, or does it come in a box or a bag? And also, it's just an easier way, I think, for a client to digest. Like, I could look at the nutritional labels, I could look at the food labels and ingredients and see what's in there and how that's going to go through my body. And also, for me, it's just trying to focus on the whole foods and as natural as we can be.
I can notice that if I eat something that has a very high glycemic index, it affects my blood sugars very quickly.
Not all carbohydrates are created equally, and that's why we have the glycemic index, which helps us determine whether a food will be converted into sugar quickly, or it takes longer to metabolize and then get put into our bloodstream. When we look at the glycemic index, we want to choose foods that are actually lower on the list, and that indicates that it takes more work for our body to break down and gives our pancreas more of a break, so it doesn't have to deal with so much sugar all at once. Here's an example of a list of foods categorized by their glycemic index. The foods on the right have a higher glycemic index and will make blood glucose increase higher and faster than the ones on the left. An exercise I like to do with people is to find the glycemic index of foods that they commonly eat and look at alternatives that they enjoy, which have a lower score. These foods take longer to get broken down into sugar and are more easily managed by the body.
One thing that I use to find out about low blood sugar is my receiver, which is, I have a transmitter hooked into me, and then the receiver I can carry around, not in a swimming pool though. But if I'm walking or doing anything else, gardening, at the gym, I have this receiver that'll beep at me if my blood sugar's low, and then I can take glucose tablets or apple juice or honey or maple syrup, one of the other things that are really good for raising your blood sugar quickly. And when I have high blood sugar, I don't feel it right away. It's just, I feel normal, I just carry on, and if my receiver isn't in sight or isn't close to me, it will let me know when I have high blood sugar. But before I got it, the only way I could tell if I had high blood sugar is that my eyes would start getting fuzzy. And it had to be way high, like in the 20s. And then I couldn't see so well. And I would take my glasses off and clean them and put them back on. And I still couldn't see very well. And sometimes I would get headaches. And I would feel lousy because I felt like I was getting a eye strain headache. I learned some of the things like white bread or white rice or too many carbs would elevate my blood sugar very quickly, and then I would just feel lousy, but it really affected my eyes. I add more fun things to my meals and make different kind of meals. And if my blood sugar goes too high, I know that I just made an error there, not to do that again. And I write that down in my food chart. You need to keep track of exactly how much you took, when, and what you felt like, and how long it affected you, whether it affected you for hours or just, half an hour. Things like that the doctor's going to ask you what everything you're taking and how much and what is actually happening and what are the things you've been eating that may have affected you. So it was really monitoring everything you're eating, and a lot of vegetables really help.
Sometimes it can be overwhelming when we're at the grocery store and trying to find foods that are healthy for us versus foods that we should stay away from. One helpful tip is to look on the front of the package labeling to see if there's this little magnifying glass, which shows if a food is high in saturated fats, sugars, or sodium. It's not a perfect solution, and I've seen a lot of unhealthy foods missing that kind of labeling. So what I like to suggest is looking on the back for the nutrition facts label. And here's 2 foods that I have that we can compare. When we compare peanut butter to hummus, what we first want to do is make sure that the amounts are the same. So we'll do a bit of math to figure that out. Next, we'll look at the number of calories, because this gets converted into fat in our bodies if we don't burn it off. Then we look at the fat content of the food, and paying special attention to the saturated and trans fats because we want to try to reduce those. Next, we look at carbohydrates, which is another fancy name for sugar. And finally, we look at sodium, because this has an implication on our blood pressure in our bodies. For people that want to do carbohydrate counting to figure out their insulin dose for that meal, what you want to do is take the total number of carbohydrates, then minus the fibers, and then based on your insulin sensitivity, we have to figure out the insulin that we need to inject for that meal based on whatever's left.
When I first started, I really had to learn portion control because I was always eating way more than I should have been. And so I have my measuring cups that always sit on my counter. Sometimes I put my measuring spoons away, but they're really handy for oils and margarines and mayonnaise and things like that, salad dressings. So I always have my cups. And so when something is supposed to be half a cup, I can measure it. And amazingly enough, a half a cup isn't very much. So you put half a cup of whatever in that, vegetables or brown rice or whatever, and put it on your plate. It really doesn't look like very much, but it's how much you're supposed to have. And then you can easily measure how many carbs you're getting. I had a boss years ago who was asking me, how can I afford on my salary to go for a trip? Because I was going for 2 or 3 weeks somewhere on an airplane. And I said, you brown bag your lunch. I said, it helps if you don't go out for coffee twice a day and buy those expensive caramel sugar high coffees, but also brown bag your lunch. So when I was talking about making big batches of food, I would also take a little container of chili or a little container of stew or soup, or make a sandwich or something like that. And I'd always take fruit with me. So I brown bagged my lunch and I saved a lot of money, sometimes $2,000 a year, that I could use for going on traveling, for going on trips.
All of my meals for me take 15 minutes, but what I found with these dishes, if I were to consider all the food that I bought and then how much of the ingredients I used to go into the bowl, is like about $5 for a bowl, yogurt bowl, or is around the same price for the egg omelet that I do. And if you think about, if you go to a restaurant and buy an omelet, that's probably not going to use the best ingredients. You're going to pay like up to at least $20 for that meal for yourself, for one person, and compared to $5. And yeah, and so you're going to save lots of money, and you're going to get all the health benefits from these natural ingredients. And then if you're going to like fast food restaurants, I would say the quality of the food is probably going to be a lot more diminished. And then like even the fast food restaurants are getting their inflation of the prices is going up too. My family will do special things once in a while, and we might go to a fast food restaurant, and you spend up to $50 for my family just for that. Like, whereas I can eat at home by myself for $5. I also think about like if you're going to a fast food restaurant compared to what I just explained for what I do at home. Consider all the time you got to drive there, and plus you got to think about the gas money as well. So you're spending money on gas and you're wasting time driving to wherever you're going to the fast food, even though it might take, you might think it might take less effort, I guess, because you're just sitting in your car, but you're spending, what, 15 minutes just to drive there and then drive out of there as well, more time, right? So whereas I'm just at home in the morning and I make my breakfast and I don't have to drive anywhere.
So I try to plan meals, and I've done this for many years, tried to plan meals. I'm not always really good at it, but I do planned over. So one night I'll have chicken and veg. I'll make twice as much as I need for that night. And then I have dinner for the next night, totally ready to go. And I don't have to work so hard that night. I would make huge pots of chili or huge lasagnas or huge pots of stew. And I would separate it out into individual dishes and freeze them. So that morning, I would take something out of the freezer and put it in the fridge. And when I came home from work, I could put it in warm water and thaw it and cook it and eat it. And it was a homemade dinner. It was complete because stew has everything in it. So I made it easier for myself to eat properly, to have good meals. And when I had like a chili that I'd made or something, I could add more vegetables to it, or I could have a side salad or something like that.
Try to find a recipe that is quick and works for you to cook at home real fast. And my whole life's based around trying to develop, like, I value and prioritize like time, and as well as obviously everyone in our society now prioritizes finances. With inflation and everything. So for me, that's definitely a huge priority, and planning ahead, knowing what meals you're going to cook throughout the week that are going to be very healthy for you. Getting into, a big part of this is going to get into the routine, and that's why consistency plays a huge role, I think.
Eating healthy with all your vegetables and your salads and your fruits really helps control your diabetes. And you don't have too many treats, and you don't have too many things you're not supposed to eat, and it helps. If they kept on it for, I'll say, a month, 6 weeks, and started to feel better, then they would realize it's the food choices that are making them feel better, and they have to stick with those food choices to continue a healthy life. Anybody can do it, and it's not as easy for everybody as it is for other people. It's going to be hard, and you just have to keep working at it because it's a change, and changes and changing your habits are always hard at the beginning. Eating right is a foundation of diabetes management, and if you control what you're eating, you can control your diabetes, and you're going to have less complications. You're going to feel better. You're going to save time and money. Your body will thank you in the end because you're eating healthy, you'll feel better, and therefore you can eat better and plan better.
Thank you for joining us today as we discuss the dietary aspect of managing diabetes. In our upcoming episode, we'll visit a First Nations community and meet up with Jack to explore the increased risk of diabetes in vulnerable groups. We'll also examine the therapeutic benefits of embracing culture, community, and traditional practices and values.